Okay, let's dive right into this. When you picture a beagle, what pops into your head? Is it the classic tricolor coat, those undeniably soulful eyes, the floppy ears?
Or maybe Snoopy, right. He's probably the world's most famous beagle.
Exactly. There's something about them that's just universally appealing, instantly recognizable pretty much everywhere.
That's so true. And that specific look, especially that, gentle, pleading expression in their eyes, well, it's designed to melt you.
Good luck resisting that.
Yeah, good luck resisting a beagle looking up at you, hoping for, just a tiny bit of your sandwich.
Oh. And that magnetic appeal is exactly why we're doing a deep dive into the world of the beagle breed today. We really want to uncover what makes them tick,
Explore their unique traits and get to the heart of what it's really like to share your life with one of these, remarkable hounds.
We've pulled together quite a bit of information for this. We looked at the official sort of blueprints, the breed standards, like the FCI standard, and also expert articles on care and training from vets and kennel clubs. Right. And maybe most importantly, we've really dug into the direct experiences shared by actual beagle owners, the stuff you only know from living with one.
Yeah, the boots on the ground perspective.
So our mission here is pretty clear: to give you a genuinely well-rounded understanding of the beagle, from their ancient hunting origins right up to their role as modern family companions.
We're going to try and pull out the most important insights, connect the dots, and maybe reveal a few, surprising facts along the way.
Okay, let's trace their steps back. Where did the whole beagle story begin?
Well, the beagle's history is deeply rooted in Great Britain. They were purpose-bred centuries ago as scent hounds.
Right, for hunting.
Specifically for hunting hare. And a key detail here is that they hunted with people on foot, not on horseback like foxhounds. They worked in packs.
And they still do sometimes, right, for hunting or tracking.
Yeah, you can still find working packs today. It's fascinating that they were essentially miniaturized for this task, bred down from larger foxhounds.
And there's that famous historical bit about pocket beagles, isn't there?
Yes, it's a genuinely surprising note from history. Records show that during the time of King Henry VIII and Queen Elizabeth I, there were strains of beagles so small they could actually be carried in a hunting jacket pocket.
Wow, literally pocket-sized.
Literally. But, and this is really crucial, if you see dogs marketed as pocket beagles today, that's usually not a good sign. They often suffer from serious health issues related to, genetic dwarfing.
Ah, okay. So that historical quirk isn't something healthy or desirable in modern dogs.
Exactly. It's a really important distinction for anyone looking into the breed now, and it all feeds back into something fundamental about them, their core identity.
Which is?
Absolutely. Understanding the beagle starts with understanding that they are, first and foremost, a scent hound. They hunt with their nose.
That's their primary sense.
Completely. This isn't just history, it's the driving force behind so much of their behavior. Even when they're, curled up on your sofa,
Right.
Their world is interpreted through scent.
So if we're talking about the blueprint, let's look at the official breed standard. What does it actually lay out as the ideal beagle?
A breed standard is basically the detailed description of the perfect physical and temperamental characteristics for the breed. It's the guide for breeders and for judges in dog shows.
And how do they decide which features are most important? What gets prioritized?
Well, the standard assigns points based on how vital a trait was to the breed's original job. For beagles, the highest points go to the body and the running gear, the legs and feet.
Why is that?
Because they needed incredible endurance. They had to hunt for hours over all sorts of terrain alongside people walking. They had to be built for miles.
That makes total sense. Little endurance athletes. So according to this blueprint, what does that ideal beagle look like, generally speaking?
Generally, they're described as sturdy, compactly built hounds. They should give an impression of quality and athleticism. Think of them as the smaller cousin of the foxhound, but definitely more active and driven than, say, a basset hound.
Okay, let's get into those specific features that make them so recognizable. The head, for instance.
Right, the head. It should be substantial, but not look coarse or heavy. The skull is slightly rounded, with a clear stop where the forehead meets the muzzle.
And the nose is key, I imagine.
Huge. The nose should be broad with wide nostrils, preferably black. Absolutely crucial for scooping up all that scent information. The muzzle should be moderately long and straight. The whole structure is basically optimized for smelling.
Their nose is their superpower, no doubt.
It truly is. Then you look at those eyes. Dark brown or hazel, fairly large, set well apart, and possessing that classic mild expression often described as hound-like, gentle and pleading.
Ah, yes, the look that gets them extra treats.
Suckles, pretty much.
Right.
The standard actually says their expression should show honesty, loyalty, affection, and intelligence. And yes, those eyes combined with the floppy ears are basically perfect instruments for convincing you they deserve just one more bite.
I could totally see that. And those ears are just iconic, aren't they?
Absolutely. Long, with a rounded tip, and if you draw them forward, they should reach nearly to the end of the nose. They're set low on the head and hang close to the cheeks.
And their length isn't just for looks.
Not at all, it's functional. Those long ear flaps actually help capture scent particles from the ground and sort of waft them towards their nose as they move.
Wow, that's clever, practical design. But I guess that flap also means potential ear issues.
Exactly. Because those long flaps cover the ear canal, it creates this warm, moist environment inside, perfect for bacteria and yeast to grow.
So ear infections are common.
Very common, unfortunately. They can be itchy and persistent. So regular cleaning and making sure their ears stay dry, especially after baths or swimming, is really important preventative care. Plus, things like grass seeds can easily get trapped in there too.
Good to know. Moving down, what about their body structure? Built for endurance, you said?
Right. The body is described as short in coupling, meaning it's relatively compact from front to back. They should have a straight, level pop line and powerful, flexible loins. The chest should be deep, extending down below the elbow with ribs that are well sprung and reach well back.
Giving them good lung capacity.
Exactly. Overall, they appear quite square and have good bone structure, all contributing to that stamina.
And the tail. It always seems to be up and wagging, doesn't it?
Yes. It's sturdy, moderately long, set on high, and carried gaily, which means held up happily, but not curled right over their back. It should be well covered with hair, especially underneath.
And the white tip. Is that standard?
Traditionally, yes, that white tip was considered essential. It acted like a little flag, helping hunters keep sight of the dog when its head was down, sniffing through tall grass or brush.
Another clever functional detail. How about their legs and feet? Built for rough terrain.
Definitely. The standard emphasizes sturdy, well-made limbs. Forelegs should be straight and positioned well under the body, with good substance, good bone. The hindquarters need muscular thighs, well-bent stifles, that's the knee joint, and firm hock joints.
And the feet.
The feet are described as tight, firm, and well-padded, like little shock absorbers, built to withstand hours of hunting over rough ground. The focus is entirely on strength, propelling power, and soundness for their job.
And all that structure translates into how they move, I suppose.
It should. Their movement should look effortless and efficient. The back stays level and firm. They should have a nice long reach with the front legs and good drive from the hind legs. It should look balanced, fluid, reflecting that ability to cover ground tirelessly.
What about their coat? It looks short, but do they shed much?
They have a short, dense, and weatherproof double coat. There's a hard outer layer and a softer undercoat. And yes, while it's short, shedding is definitely a reality. Beagle owners know all about shedding.
Okay, good to be aware of. And colors. I mostly picture the tricolor.
Tricolor black, white, and tan is certainly the most common and maybe the most iconic, but actually any recognized hound color is acceptable.
Really? Like what?
Oh, the standard lists quite a few. Things like blue, white, and tan, various pied combinations, badger pied, hare pied, lemon and white, red and white, tan and white, black and white. Even all white is possible. They can also be mottled or ticked.
Wow, so there's much more variety than you might initially think.
Definitely. The only real color requirement is that white tip on the tail, unless the entire dog happens to be all white.
Interesting. And what about size? Is there much variation?
There are actually 2 official height varieties, at least according to the AKC standard. One group is for beagles under 13 inches at the shoulder, and the other is for those 13 to 15 inches.
So anything over 15 inches is considered too big for show purposes?
Generally, yes, for conformation shows or field trials. In the real world, you'll find beagles ranging roughly from, say, 10 inches up to maybe 16 inches. Weight varies along with height, usually under 20 pounds for the smaller ones, and maybe 20 to 30 pounds for the 13 to 15-inch group.
And no difference between males and females in the standard?
Nope, the standard doesn't specify separate height or weight ranges for males and females.
Okay, so we've got a good picture of the physical ideal. But what about the personality inside that sturdy little body? The standard calls them a merry hound.
Yes, Merry Hound is the classic description. Also bold, active, intelligent, even-tempered, and amiable. They shouldn't show aggression or be overly timid.
That sounds lovely, but this is where hearing from owners adds so much richness, right? How does that merry hound translate into daily life?
This is where it gets really interesting because the owner experiences paint a very vivid and sometimes challenging picture. They are undeniably friendly, super affectionate, playful, energetic, incredibly curious and adventurous.
Social dogs.
Very social. They thrive on companionship, human and often canines. They're generally considered excellent with children and usually get along well with other pets too.
But
Yeah.
there's always a but, isn't there?
With beagles, yes. Owners consistently describe them as stubborn and easily distracted, especially by smells.
Right.
And the food motivation, it is absolutely legendary.
Oh, I've heard about this.
You'll hear them called stinkingly cute con artists because they will use those eyes, they will stare you down, act like they haven't eaten in weeks, just demanding food. They will eat anything remotely edible, and often things that aren't, which can definitely get them into trouble or make them sick.
So securing the kitchen is essential.
Oh, yeah. Securing your home, putting food away immediately, maybe even baby locks on cabinets. That's just Beagle ownership 101. Their curiosity combined with that intense food drive is a powerful force.
It sounds like that determination mentioned in the standard can really look like stubbornness when their goals, like finding food or following a scent, don't align with yours.
Precisely. And that leads us right back to their core identity. Everything they do is filtered through that lens of being a scent hound. They're not dogs who are content to just, sit around idly all day. They need mental stimulation, physical activity. They really need a job to do, even if that job is just figuring out a puzzle toy.
Okay, what about being vocal? Are they known for barking or baying?
Oh, yes. Beagles are definitely vocal dogs. You have to remember, they were bred to use their voice during the hunt to signal to the hunter when they'd found a scent trail or flushed out the game.
So barking and howling are just natural for them.
Pretty much part of the package. They might bark to alert you to someone approaching, to mark their territory, sometimes out of fear, like during thunderstorms or fireworks. But also, very commonly, out of boredom or loneliness, or just to get your attention because they want something, or even just pure excitement.
That potential for loud barking, or maybe even that distinctive baying or howling, depending on the dog, could be tricky in certain living situations, like an apartment.
It's definitely something potential owners need to consider carefully. It really depends on the individual dog, their training, and critically, how much mental and physical stimulation they're getting.
And their need for company plays into that too.
Absolutely, because they are quite prone to developing separation anxiety if they're left alone for long stretches regularly. Excessive barking, howling, whining, destructive chewing, pacing these are often signs of stress when left alone. They really are pack animals at heart and thrive on having company.
Now, one phenomena that comes up constantly in owner discussions is this idea of the ears turn off. What exactly is that about?
Ah, yes. This is perhaps the most profound example of their scent hound nature in action. When a beagle locks on to a strong, interesting scent, it's almost like their hearing faculty completely shuts down.
Seriously, they just don't hear you.
It seems that way. They become utterly focused on that smell, and they may genuinely not register you calling them, even if you're shouting. Owners describe it as this fundamental, almost hardwired thing. The nose overrides everything else in that moment. It's not disobedience in the usual sense, it's instinct taking over.
Wow, that single-minded focus on scent really explains why training and very consistent management are just so vital for this breed.
They absolutely require patience and consistency. Because of that independence, that stubborn streak often driven by their nose, you really need to start training early and be incredibly clear and persistent with your expectations and boundaries.
There's some good general timelines for puppy training milestones, aren't there?
Yes. For example, that critical window between about 8 to 16 weeks, that's prime time for broad socialization, safely exposing them to all sorts of new dogs, people, places, sounds, car rides, getting them comfortable with a crate. It's all about building confidence and curiosity, not fear.
And then building on that foundation.
Right. By 6 months or so, they should understand the basics of learning. This is when you're really cementing commands like sit, stay, come, always using consistent positive reinforcement. Potty training and crate training are usually major focuses during this period too. Diligence, A strict schedule and tons of praise for success are crucial.
Crate training seems almost universally recommended for them.
It really is. It's highlighted as a fantastic tool for management and prevention. It prevents accidents in the house, yes, but more importantly, it keeps a curious, potentially destructive pup safe when you can't supervise them directly. It also helps them learn to settle and can make house training go much smoother. But consistency with the crate is absolutely key.
And what about exercise during puppyhood? Need to be careful.
Yeah, a bit. Proper exercise like running and playing is vital for burning energy and building muscle, of course. But the advice is generally to avoid excessive jumping or really strenuous agility type stuff until their growth plates close, which is usually around a year old. This helps protect their developing joints and spine.
A tired puppy is a good puppy.
That's the saying. A tired Beagle puppy is usually a much better behaved Beagle puppy. Boredom is very often the root cause of mischief with them.
So by the time they're about a year old, they should ideally know basic commands and have a solid daily routine. And their natural drives make them good candidates for certain dog sports or activities.
Definitely. Their intelligence, their incredible stamina, and especially that amazing nose make them naturally suited for things like tracking events, obedience, agility, though may be careful with jumps, and particularly field trials.
What happens in field trials?
In field trials, they're basically judged on their hunting abilities, how well they search for a scent, explore the terrain, show endurance, and demonstrate that classic Beagle determination to follow a trail. They genuinely love being involved in family outings and activities. It gives them that sense of purpose they crave and really strengthens the bond with their owner.
This brings us back to something really crucial. Given the Beagle's intelligence, that streak of stubbornness, and their deep need for mental engagement to prevent boredom and manage that powerful nose training is just absolutely essential, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. It's non-negotiable.
And this is exactly where maybe focusing on activities that challenge their minds, not just their bodies, can be incredibly valuable.
Exactly. It prevents so many potential problems. You know, things like destructive chewing or that nuisance barking often stem from just plain boredom or frustration. This is where focusing on activities that really engage their brains can make a world of difference.
Like using puzzle toys or playing scent-based games around the house.
Yeah, precisely those kinds of things. And actually, there are also more structured programs designed specifically for this purpose. We came across information on one called Brain Training for Dogs by Adrienne Faricelli. It uses games and fun interactive exercises specifically aimed at boosting a dog's intelligence and improving their behavior through positive methods.
That sounds like it could be a really good fit for a breed like the Beagle, who needs that kind of mental work to thrive.
It seems like it could be. It's all about providing that much-needed mental stimulation and strengthening that bond through interactive learning.
That sounds genuinely useful for Beagle owners looking for creative ways to engage their dogs. We can definitely put a link for that program in the video description in the first pinned comment if you want to check it out.
Good idea. Because really, tapping into that intelligence constructively is so important with them.
Okay, speaking of managing those drives, the off-leash risk. This seems like a huge point for Beagles.
It cannot be stressed enough, seriously. Because of their incredible sense of smell, their innate curiosity, and that strong prey drive, letting a Beagle off-leash in an unfenced area is generally considered extremely risky.
They just follow their nose.
They follow their nose. If they catch an interesting scent, they can become completely consumed by it and follow it relentlessly, sometimes for blocks and blocks. They might only snap out of it when they're far from home, lost, and totally disoriented.
So the rule is basically always keep them contained or leashed.
Pretty much. A secure fence or a reliable leash is essential for their safety. While you might hear the odd story about a Beagle with perfect recall, the vast majority simply cannot be trusted off-leash. That instinct to follow a scent is often far more powerful than any command you can give.
It sounds like respecting that fundamental nature is just part of responsible Beagle ownership. Okay, let's shift gears a bit to health. What are some common concerns potential owners should be aware of?
Well, the good news is, with proper care, Beagles typically live a good, long life, maybe 12 to 15 years on average. Regular vet checkups and preventative care are, of course, vital.
We already mentioned ear infections.
Right, very common due to those lovely floppy ears. Regular cleaning is key to preventing problems there.
And they're prone to putting on weight, you said.
Extremely. They adore food, so obesity is a major concern. Strict portion control is absolutely non-negotiable. Using a high-quality food, carefully measuring portions, using low-calorie treats sparingly, and definitely avoiding table scraps. It's all crucial because obesity leads to so many other health problems.
What about some more serious, maybe genetic conditions?
Epilepsy is one condition that owners should be aware of. Idiopathic epilepsy, meaning seizures without a known underlying cause, seems to occur more frequently in beagles than in some other breeds. It often starts between 6 months and 6 years old.
Is it manageable?
It usually requires long-term management, often with lifelong medication, but it can typically be controlled. Hypothyroidism, which is an underactive thyroid gland, is another condition they can be susceptible to.
What are the signs of that?
Symptoms can be a bit vague and come on slowly. Things like unexplained weight gain, hair loss, lethargy, maybe recurring skin or ear infections, sometimes even a sad facial expression or seeking out warm spots. But it's diagnosed with a blood test and usually responds very well to daily thyroid medication.
I also saw IVDD, intervertebral disc disease, mentioned by some owners as a concern.
Yes, that's definitely one to be aware of. Because of their conformation, that relatively long back combined with shorter legs, they can be more prone to IVDD.
What exactly?
It's a degenerative condition affecting the cushioning discs between the vertebrae and their spine. These discs can bulge or even rupture, putting pressure on the spinal cord. This can cause anything from pain and mobility issues to, in severe cases, paralysis and loss of bladder or bowel control.
How is it treated?
Mild cases might be managed with strict rest and anti-inflammatory medications, but more severe cases often require surgery. Because of this risk, careful management of exercise is often recommended, particularly avoiding excessive jumping or jarring activities that put a lot of strain on their backs.
So, thinking preventatively, what are the key takeaways for healthcare?
Okay, so regular ear cleaning is a must. Careful exercise, especially avoiding high-impact jumping to protect their backs. Vigilant portion control to prevent obesity, super important. Regular grooming to manage the shedding.
And if getting a puppy from a breeder.
Definitely ask about health testing history in the parents and lineage. Especially ask about screening for conditions like hypothyroidism, epilepsy, and maybe a history of severe cherry eye, which is another eye condition they can get.
Cherry eye?
Yeah, it's where a gland in the corner of the eye pops out, looks like a little red lump. Often happens in young dogs. It's uncomfortable and can lead to other eye issues. Surgery is common, but it can sometimes recur.
And reinforcing what we said earlier about beagle-proofing the house.
Absolutely critical for their health, too.
Okay.
Because they're such curious food thieves, they will get into things they shouldn't. Trash cans, countertops, cabinets. They can easily ingest things that are toxic or cause blockages. So baby locks, secure bins, keeping counters clear, it's all part of keeping them safe.
This brings us to the real heart of it, the actual lived experience. When you look at what owners say, what are the biggest pros? What makes people love them so much?
Oh, the pros are incredibly compelling. Owners consistently rave about how affectionate, sweet, funny, and just endlessly entertaining they are. They tend to love everybody, people, other dogs. Generally fantastic with kids and even neighbors.
Their size is a plus, too.
Yeah, their smaller size makes them pretty adaptable for travel or different living situations, assuming the potential barking isn't an issue for neighbors. Their need for exercise can actually be a positive motivator for owners to get out more. They're often quite long-lived and generally healthy compared to some other breeds.
And the cuteness factor.
Off the charts. Super cute, undeniably loyal, very cuddly when they're in the mood. They make great adventure buddies for hiking or exploring. Owners use words like mellow, silly, sassy. They just have these huge, engaging personalities. People really fall hard for them.
That sounds like an absolute dream dog. So what are the challenges? What balances out all that wonderfulness?
Well, the challenges are significant, and they nearly all tie back directly to that fundamental scent hound nature. The biggest one, repeated over and over, is that you generally cannot trust them off leash. Period. They will follow their nose, potentially into danger.
What else?
Their intense curiosity means they are constantly investigating, often getting into things they absolutely shouldn't. The barking and baying can be loud, persistent, and definitely problematic, especially if they're bored, lonely, or not trained properly.
So not a dog to just leave alone for hours.
Definitely not. They are not dogs who are content to just lie around alone all day waiting for you. They need companionship. They need mental engagement. Owners are very upfront about this. They are not easy. They require serious, unwavering consistency in training and management.
And the food obsession we talked about.
The food demands are constant and can be quite wearing. The staring, the begging, the counter-surfing attempts. It's relentless. Shedding is also a constant reality. Potty training can sometimes be a real struggle, taking longer than with some other breeds.
And potential for destruction.
Yes, if they are bored or don't get enough physical and mental exercise, they can definitely become destructive, chewing furniture, digging holes in the yard. And that potential for separation anxiety, often expressed through howling, is a significant point many owners raise. Plus, that high prey drive might mean issues with smaller pets or a tendency to dig.
So it's a really complex mix. Incredible charm and affection balanced by these very deep-seated hound instincts that demand understanding, patience, and active management.
That's exactly it. Owners often describe the Beagle experience as unique, sometimes a bit wild, but ultimately incredibly wonderful. They can be amazing companions, truly best friends for life, but you absolutely have to be prepared to put in the work, be consistent, and understand who they are fundamentally.
So it sounds like for the right person or family who's prepared for that commitment, the reward is incredibly high.
Definitely. And, of course, like any breed, remember that each Beagle is still an individual. They'll have their own quirks and personality variations within these general breed traits.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, the Beagle really emerges as this fascinating blend, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You've got the ancient scent hound, bred for tireless work in the field.
Combined with the modern, incredibly lovable, sometimes maddeningly stubborn, and always food-motivated family companion.
They are profoundly social dogs, intelligent in their own unique, scent-driven way, and they absolutely require owners who not only adore them, but also truly understand and can meet their fundamental needs.
Needs for consistent training, loads of mental engagement, ample exercise, and perhaps most importantly, companionship.
Despite the undeniable challenges, the stubborn streak, that selective hearing when a scent calls, the potential for being quite vocal.
Their deeply affectionate nature, their sheer joy for life, their often hilarious antics, and of course those classic soulful eyes. It all makes them one of the most beloved and ultimately rewarding breeds out there for those who are truly prepared for the journey.
And that leaves us with a thought to maybe chew on. Considering the Beagle's incredibly powerful innate drive to follow a scent above absolutely everything else, sometimes to the point of completely ignoring their human companions, what does this really tell us about the sheer force of instinct in shaping behavior, even in the animals we've domesticated and share our homes with?
It's a fascinating question about nature versus nurture right there in our living rooms.
We truly hope this deep dive into the world of the Beagle has given you a deeper appreciation for these remarkable, complicated, and utterly charming dogs. We send you all our love.
And we'll see you at the next meeting for another deep dive.